Hey, so just one word before I begin. American Samoa, welcome to 2017. As I understand it, American Samoa is the last inhabited place in the world to enter a new year. And coincidentally, it's only 500 kilometers from Tonga, which is the first place to welcome in the new year. So, in theory, you could get a flight from Tonga to American Samoa and welcome in the new year twice. So that's it. We're all in 2017 now. Um, I want to talk a little bit about personality, or if I could put it another way, perception of personality. I've been thinking a lot about over the last few hours about musicians, celebrities, and so on, and fame just generally. And one thing that's interesting is that one thing that we've certainly learned in recent years is that sometimes public figures who are perceived to be very noble or virtuous in a certain way, very often there is actually, or I shouldn't say very often, but more often than not, there is a side to them that the public don't realize that is actually less than savory. And I'm not saying this to be kind of a wet blanket, but I'm saying it because I think it's important to recognize that what this does is remind us of the fact that no one's perfect. One thing I've never liked is when eulogies to public figures who have passed away get to the point of marbleizing that person. It happened when Muhammad Ali died, happened when Nelson Mandela died, and there's a few other examples. Princess Diana would be another example. People who are so widely admired and respected that they then become marbleized, and their supporters just don't want to hear anything other than blind praise, which I think is a mistake. But there sometimes is revelations about people that emerge after they pass away. One of the most glaring examples is Jimmy Savile. For years, he was a well-known entertainer in the UK. Well, it subsequently emerged that he was one of our most prolific sex offenders. There's other less serious examples. Bing Crosby was widely admired in his lifetime as an entertainer and an all-round nice guy, but he actually had quite a dark side. If if insights, if archives are to be believed, apparently he was quite a lousy father, I believe. Well, according to the reports, John Lennon is another example. You know, we all remember John Lennon for Imagine and being a peace activist and all. Well, he had a track record of beating women, and he was a lousy father. Yeah, I'm not saying this to attack people who can't defend themselves because they've died. And I'm not saying this to kind of throw stones because no one is perfect. But it comes down to a more basic point, and it actually comes down to self critique, healthy self critique. Sometimes I look back on certain videos that I've made and I think, well, was I maybe a little bit sharp in the way I was putting forward my argument? Maybe whereby I've been particularly angry about a particular subject and I then vocalize it in a way that's maybe not ideal. I mean, to be fair, I don't think I get into the gutter, but perhaps I don't always use the language that would be ideal. And I think the reason for that is because I'm brutally honest in my videos. I never self censor. And that's not a regret. I prefer it to be this way rather than constantly kind of, you know, being in a situation whereby I say, oh, shall I say this? Shall I not say that? What will people think? It's just not the way I work on my channel. Um, because for me, there wouldn't be much point of having a channel if I was to constantly self-censor. But sometimes I do think, am I being too negative? Am I being too critical? Am I being too whatever? Um, And I suppose that's useful. I suppose having a YouTube channel is sort of like being a writer or a director, or there's a certain level of ownership in terms of what we put out there. And I do believe that we're all responsible for what we put online. So I take full responsibility for anything I say on my channel. Um, and that's it really. I just think it comes down to honesty. Honesty. It's not about being Mr. Nice Guy all the time. So in other words, if I am particularly angry about a particular subject, when I reflect on it, it's better that I be sharp in my views. I try not to be outright vitriolic. I try to avoid that as much as possible about individuals. I certainly hate certain issues um, and certain ideologies, no question about that, and that's fine. I try to rise above hating individuals, although admittedly there's certain individuals that well, let's just say if I dwell on them for too long, it does get me worked up. Um, and yeah, I probably do hate them, but I try to avoid going into that frame of mind because it isn't healthy. Um, and if I make videos about those individuals, I try to keep them, I try not to obsess over them. I'll make the video and then move on. But basically, I think honesty is the most important thing. So what I'm basically saying is being a decent person isn't always about being nice to people. Sometimes you have to be just honest about how you feel about something. And if that means saying, I hate this situation and I hate that ideology and I don't agree with what these people are doing, so be it. That is actually more mature and more. I'm not talking about myself by them, I'm just talking in general terms. That to me is a better approach than being Mr. Nice Guy or Mrs. Nice Lady because it's fake. And no normal person likes everyone. It just doesn't. I think there's people who want to get on with everyone, but with the best will in the world, you can't get on with everyone because even if you're a decent, thoroughly nice person, charming person, amicable person, and you have no mean spirit whatsoever, someone will find a reason to dislike you for whatever reason. So I find rather than constantly policing ourselves and trying to please people, we just have to be honest to ourselves. Because actually that makes us more decent people anyway. I find that I find that people who put on a false front and they're nice to people's face, but they might talk behind their back, or they might, if not talk behind their back, they're putting on a front of pretending to like the person just because it's convenient. I'm not saying that people should go for confrontation. Sometimes it is good to be diplomatic, and let's say, for example, I have a drunk, right? And I think that person could be violent if I tell them to piss off. And I judge that it is more diplomatic to engage with them, to just humor them. Then I'll do that. It's not because I particularly want to, but it's because I judge that is the preferable option. Because someone not in control of themselves is often not in control of their own, what they do. So I was in a situation actually a few years ago. There was a drunk girl got onto the local metro, and most people were ignoring her. She then spoke to me, and she wasn't being aggressive to me, but she was aggressively talking about other people. And I found that by talking to her in a calm way, almost conversationally, it didn't necessarily change her rhetoric, but it distracted her, which kind of meant she didn't harass the other passengers. So I'm sort of proud of myself that I can take that approach. Not that I should have to. I mean, don't get drunk and go on a public transport system and harass people. There's no need for it. But yeah, the most important thing is honesty. So if over the next year I make videos that are blunt and candid, it's not because I'm seeking confrontation. It's not because I want to offend anyone. It's not because I want to hurt anyone. It's because I believe the particular subject that I'm speaking about is important enough to be spoken about and has to be spoken about. I make videos in large part to raise awareness of the subject that I'm discussing. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and thanks everyone for the previous messages. If I don't get around to replying to those, I have seen them and I do acknowledge them. And I wish you guys and girls all Happy New Year. Thank you very much. But that's it, really. I'm just making a call for honesty. It's not about being Mr. Nice Guy. It's not about being Mr. Nasty Guy either. You know, there's some people that just come across as very unpleasant, and you think, well, why? You know, why treat your fellow human beings that way? It's not about either of those approaches. It's simply about being honest. That's all. Thanks for watching.